Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. 22 long rifle. The humble 22 rimfire. Plinking, small game, target shooting, target competition. Just practice, just for fun. We use this for pretty much everything, and it's the cheapest commercially made ammo out there, despite recent events. What would you do if you couldn't get it anymore? This happened a few years back, and a friend of mine had an answer. He got a Ruger single 6 and had it rechambered for 25 ACP. 25 ACP was originally designed as a 22 long rifle replacement for pocket pistols. And it actually worked out quite well because from handguns, it's pretty much comparable to 22 long rifle. And you can hand load it. So you're not going to run out of ammo. Unless, like now, you can't get primers. But that's another thing. Anyway, the only problem was 25 ACP isn't that powerful, which is fine if you're just interested in a 22 long rifle replacement. But there's not really a lot of room to soup it up. It's not a very big cartridge, there's not a lot of room for powder, and the case head is not the strongest. So I thought to myself, what if there were a 22 cartridge, a 25 caliber cartridge, that could replace everything from 22 CB gallery loads to 22 Magnum. First of all, there wouldn't be a gun chambered for it, but I was intrigued by the notion. So I got some 22 Hornet brass, played around with reloading dies, and made a couple of special tools, and came up with this 251 TCR. And TCR stands for Tinker Centerfire Rimmed. And I have loaded this everywhere from gallery loads that make 7 or 8 foot-pounds of energy up to slightly exceed 22 Magnum power levels, making 168 energy foot-pounds out of a 3.5-inch barrel. Now, of course, when I came up with this idea, there were no guns chambered for 251 TCR. Fortunately, my friend that had made the 25 auto chambered gun still had a section of 25 ACP barrel that he was willing to sell me cheap, and did. And I took a Pieta 1873 single action Army and converted it to 25 251 TCR. It'll also shoot 25 ACP, though it's hard to imagine a circumstance in which that would be particularly handy. Anyway, let's go to the table and have a look at both the gun and the cartridges. So, here's 25 ACP, 22 long rifle, and 251 TCR. One of the issues with a 25 caliber is that most 25 calibers that people make bullets for are 257, and 25 auto is 251. So you're kind of limited. The three basic choices are the Memorial 50 grain full metal case made for 25 ACP, the 35 grain gold dot hollow point, and these would actually be quite devastating on small game, and a nominally 55 grain flat point hard cast lead bullet made by Rimrock bullets. I don't know if that's still available. I'd show that off, but I used mine up. And here's the casing. As you can see, it's just a simple straight-walled rim casing. This one is primed because I was doing some reloading. And it says 22 Hornet on the head stamp. And basically what I'd do is I'd take the 22 Hornet cartridge and run it into a 25 ACP sizing die, which would make a very long, thin cartridge, and then cut it off to length, as you can see. Now, the gun was originally just a Piatta reproduction of an 1873 Army. And since I was thinking of this for a kit gun or a knocking around the woods kind of gun, I thought it would be good to have a shorter barrel in the test gun. So I removed the ejector rod housing and the place on the frame where the ejector rod housing would go, which is very similar to what Colt used to do on the what we now call a sheriff's model, and they cleverly referred to as an ejectorless model. And as an aesthetic decision, I decided to flat the sides of the barrel, and I'm not really that pleased with the result. I wouldn't do it again. So I bored the barrel, the 45 caliber barrel out, and lined it with the 25 ACP barrel that I turned down on the lathe. Cut a nice crown in it, and it's silver soldered in place. The cylinder was more of an issue. I did originally line a cylinder, and that was okay for some testing, but what I really wanted was a proper purpose-built cylinder. So I made this one out of half-hard 4140, which is a fairly typical industry standard for revolver cylinders. And I made it an 8-shooter, which was interesting getting the timing right. I put 3 marks here to remind me not to load that chamber because there's no safety on these guns, and if you drop it on the hammer, if there's a cartridge under it, it will go off. And so typically you leave one cylinder unloaded. And this just sort of is to designate it as that cylinder. The workmanship is really not up to the standard that I would shoot for today, but this was just a proof of concept prototype. In particular, I didn't have any good way of cutting grooves for the locking key, so I just did the best I could with the Dremel tool, and they're kind of sloppy looking, but it does work, and it works very well indeed. So that's about all there is to the gun. And there's not a lot more to say about the cartridge. Loads can be anywhere from 1 grain of universal for a lightweight bullet with for a gallery load, all the way up to 4.4 grains of power pistol under a 35 grain gold dot, which gives you 1,460 some feet per second out of a 3-inch barrel. But that load was not entirely successful because the bullets can't always take it. So it's better to dial it back to about 1,200 feet per second. 251 TCR was a fun project, and I had a lot of time experimenting with it and testing it that I just really enjoyed. It was interesting and challenging to make the gun over for it, and that's pretty much where it ends. I was talking sort of a little bit with Ruger before COVID, and that all pretty much stopped with COVID and hasn't picked up because I'm not sure even Ruger, adventurous as they are up for introducing a brand new cartridge in this market. That seems a little crazy. Yes, I'm looking at you, 30 Super Carry. And at some point, when the market cools down, calms down, if it ever does, I may broach this to Ruger again. I actually thought it would be an ideal cartridge for their single 6 revolvers. But really, there's not a lot of chance that this is ever going to go any further than it is, which is with me being the only person in the world who has the cartridges and the guns to shoot them. That's okay. I didn't really do this expecting it to set the world on fire or even be more than a mildly interesting project for other people on the forums and online to enjoy. And so far, that's pretty much where we're at. Likely enough, the cartridge will live and die with me. like I said, it was fun and kept me off the streets for a while. And I still enjoy shooting it. And it's kind of fun to have invented a whole cartridge and made a gun to shoot it. Anyway, if you like what you see here, please click like and subscribe. It's very little effort on your part, but it makes a world of difference for the channel. Also, if you want to support my continued endeavors, consider clicking the link below and supporting me on Patreon. Anyway, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.